reporting on day 2, Evanston, Wyoming to Green River, Wyoming, 95 miles, taking 10 hours and 15 minutes. All of this I recorded in my journal, and I kept close, wrote all the details down. I'm a person for details. As exhausted and sick as I was that first day, I woke up and felt great, and I was so excited to continue my ride. Now, I planned my destination for the day around approximately 100 miles. That was my goal, to do 100 miles a day. So I would plan on a city that is around 100 miles from where I left. And I always had a map with me. And on my handlebars, by the way, the bicycle was not a mountain bike. This is before mountain bikes existed. And most people call it a 10-speed or a road bike, the skinny wheels. I, of course, had thorn-proof inner tubes in my inner tubes. So I had carried with me with my pack, I had 2 sets of tires. You fold them twice and it's about this round, and 1 complete and an inner tube. By the way, right now I'm looking at my notes. It's on a website. Okay, I decided to finish my little series of reporting on my bicycle trip. And remember that my bicycle trip was early June, 24 days out of 28 riding days. I usually rested on the 7th day because you get bored riding for 10-12 hours every day. And remember, my first day on the bike was Salt Lake City, Utah to Evanston, Wyoming, which was 84 miles and 13 hours. Middle of the Rocky Mountains, and we roughly went from 4,000 something feet in Salt Lake City to 7,000 something feet. So a climb of 3,000 feet. Well, when I leave in the morning, every morning, I get up as soon as it starts to get light, and I usually sleep in a sleeping bag. As you remember, in the first day of my travel, I had a cough, bad cough, that kept me awake. The website is joe-orgill.com/bike trip. So Evanston is 6,800 feet. Population at that time, a few years back, 4,901. Night time temperatures were still very chilly. Maybe between 40 and 50 degrees. And I stayed fairly warm in my down mummy sleeping bag. It's a sleeping bag that's maybe this long, and it rolls up tight into just a pack and extends off the end of my bike. I did have a couple of feathers come out every night when I woke up and get on me, so it was a true down sleeping bag. Now, I bought some cough syrup, and so I didn't cough that night. Coming up to Evanston, apart from just exhaustion, nothing exciting happened other than running out of water and having to run over to a creek and hope. In those days it was safe to drink out of mountain creeks, and that's where the cattle were drinking. When huge semi-trucks come from the opposite direction and they're going 70 to 75 miles per hour, but the hard wind, a huge gust of wind, blows just as they whiz past in the opposite direction, and it just scared me about knocking me over. Okay, I always look at the animals. Cows, they always look at me, kind of like seeing what I'm going to do, maybe if I'm going to, they're too lazy to walk over to the fence, you know, if I stop for a quick break, so they just turn around. And it's kind of funny, a whole herd of cows will stare at you till you're completely past. That kind of bugged me a little bit. The horses, when I'd walk over, if I had some fruit or something, I'd always maybe break my apple in half and walk over, and the first one over, I would offer the horse. And they were nice horses. Whenever they'd see me, and I'd stop, because I think they were a long way from their feeding area, just wandering a field. They had kind of an old crickety wire fence surrounding, so they can't walk out onto the highway. But the horses were a little bit shy, but having ridden on the horses quite a bit, I enjoyed just stroking their head and while I was feeding them. When I got about 40 miles outside of Evanston, and just outside of Lyman, where are 3 hills, and they call them, the local people call them sister hills, and each one of them was about a 3 or 4 mile climb. And at first looked quite menacing, but today I'm literally bursting with energy. And actually run by 3 hippie types who are hitchhiking, and they are always curious about my trip. And when I tell them where I'm going, Trois-Rivières, Quebec, Canada, they usually answer with the same thing: out of sight, far out. Oh, what a trip, what a trip. And they're always very warm and friendly. I came across one girl and a fellow who had fallen asleep at the wheel and had careened back and forth on the guardrails, smashing the sides of their car. They luckily came over. They came to a stop without turning over. I stopped to survey the damage and to offer assistance. They were about 30 miles from the nearest form of civilization, like a broken down gas station or something. The fellow had already gone for help, hitchhiking. At the top of one of the 3 sister hills, 15 or 20 miles into the desert after leaving Evanston towards Green River, I saw a Volkswagen bus parked at the top as I ever so slowly pedaled and approached the top. On the side of the hill, sleeping in sleeping bags in the sagebrush, were about 10 people. 2 of them ran down when they saw me coming and greeted me out of sight when they found out where I was going. I was bursting with energy the whole day. Little America, a motel area in the middle of nowhere between Green River and Evanston, had showers in the gas station. Green River is unique. You come over these desolate, whitish, sagebrushless hills, and all of a sudden, a little valley of grass. That isn't Green River, however. It's only the golf course 2 miles west of it. Quite surprisingly, considering most of the countryside leading into it was dry, plantless, half sand and half clay in appearance. I'm riding on a desert, I remind you. Green River has the most startling, rectangular, sudden, projecting rock mountains. And again, I'm in a branch of the Rocky Mountains, and I'm approaching the Continental Divide slowly, and that's slowly going uphill until we hit the Continental Divide and it goes downhill. And then all the water flows east to one of the main rivers, like the Mississippi River or the Gulf. Okay, so I'm in Green River, and I love it there, and I thought, well, since I'm a Mormon, I would always look for a Mormon church to sleep by it, maybe because I felt a little more secure. I don't know. But as I first looked at it, it looked like a nice building surrounded by lawn. No second thought, I won't. It was the sheriff's station. And I ran into the bishop of a LDS ward here, who was outside cutting the grass, if I could sleep behind the church building, and he consented. They happened to be having a wedding reception that night, and there I was in my sleeping bag, while people in tuxedos, suits, etc. were outside walking by, looking down at me. And I was so tired, I didn't wave or nod my head, I just didn't move. Because at that moment, I'm anxious to fall asleep so I can get up in the morning. At that moment, I have bleeding athlete's feet, which the 12 hours of perspiration didn't help. I hope it doesn't get any worse. 12 hours of wind blows a lot of dirt into my nostrils and cakes it to the point that the rough corners rub and often cause slight bleeding in my nose. The sunblock, called Soul Bar, seems to be keeping me from burning excessively, because the whole day, no clouds, the sun's just bearing down on me, possibly a very hot 80 to 90 degrees with no clouds. And in those days, I never wore sunglasses. I'm not sure why I didn't. Maybe I could, well, one reason is I wore regular glasses and I didn't feel comfortable with 2 sets of glasses on me when I have to be quite aware of small details for rocks along the side of the road, or drop-offs, or 2 huge vehicles passing each other right where I am and maybe force me off the road. But I have one eye that's getting quite bloodshot. I start to develop a little crotch rash from my support loving me, but through daily washing and applying sporadically baby oil, it keeps it away.